Hey everyone, I'm going to give everybody a few minutes. It's not quite 9:30 anyway. So it's 9:27 by my clock, and usually people log on at 9:30 and realize they have to download all kinds of software. So I'm going to give them a few minutes and then we'll get started. Yes. Why? Well, we're waiting for people to. You don't want to come get it? You're welcome.
Is the camera on?
Oh yeah.
I'm looking at you.
Yes.
I don't want to get in front of the camera.
So just a quick check, how's the audio? Because the camera bit on mine seems a little choppy and I want to make sure that the audio is fine. Okay, by the time this syncs through to everybody, it should be 8:40 for you. So let's get started. My name is Katie Cunningham, and I am here to teach Django REST framework. The way this is going to work is I'm using Cloud9, which is an online IDE. And we're going to go through the whole setup together. So if you don't have a Cloud9 account, go to c9.io and sign up. It's free. You can create as many workspaces as you want, and we're going to go through the whole process together. The reason I use Cloud9 versus just having everybody work on their local is that I don't feel like blowing an hour and a half on setup. Which means I have to look at people's computers. And this is much easier because you can share your workspace with me just by clicking a link and sending me the link. So let's go over how Google Hangouts on Air works. I am not like 100% synced with you. It takes a little bit longer for me to get to you. I forget what that's called because it's early and I've only had 1 cup of coffee. So there is going to be a little bit of delay. I might ask a question and then, a few minutes later I'll be able to get answers. So there's a few features for Google Hangouts on Air if you're not watching this on YouTube. One of the features is if you look at the top, there's a little apps tray, which is a bunch of little squares. If you click on that, you'll see Showcase. Showcase has a bunch of links that are pertinent to this class. So go ahead, click that. You'll want to get into the chat because that's where you're going to be asking questions. You'll want to make sure you have a Cloud9 account. There's a link to some of the tutorial docs that I'll be kind of working off of. There's also a Q&A app. If you have any questions, like you want me to go over something again, or you have a more in-depth question you'd like me to cover, ask in the Q&A app. I'll be checking it every once in a while to see if there are any questions at the moment. That's not where you go and get help though. If you need help, the best thing to do is to go to the chat and ask there, because that's one thing I'll be checking quite regularly. The Q&A app I won't be checking as often. And also the Q&A app, once this is done and recorded and up, people will be able to fast forward to those questions. So it really isn't a place to debug and figure things out. Go ahead and do that in PyLadies DC chat. So let's see, anything else I need to go? If you need help, you can share your workspace. Let me open up, not the workspace we're going to be working off of, but I will show you what it looks like. Needs to load. If you go up to this corner, it's a little hard to see sometimes, but there is a share link, and you just click on that. And you can just paste that into chat and I can look at it. You can invite me if you want, but if I need to actually monkey around, you can just, my CNAME user is kcunning. So just like in the chat, just like everywhere else on the internet practically, just put in C9 and I'll be able to access your workspace. So the other thing, if you just want to share an editor, I would go to dbase.com. So don't put links, don't put errors directly in the chat unless they're one line or something. Go ahead and paste it here so that, and then share the link after you hit paste it, because that's much easier for all of us to read and we can share it with each other. So yes, that's the 2 ways that you can get help. So let me go over the basics of the class. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to set up our workspace. As you can see, I don't have a workspace for this yet. I wanted to create it because some people were uncertain how to create a workspace here. We're going to create a Django workspace and we're going to create a simple app. It's not very complicated, and I'm going to share my workspace with all of you, the link for it, so you can go and just paste my code. You don't have to type along with me. This will also serve as a bit of a Django review for those of you who it may have been a while since you've touched Django, or you're only vaguely aware of what some of the things are. So once we do that, we'll take a little break. Once we have our app up and running, we're going to take a little break. And sorry, I have allergies, so you're going to see my tissue. once we get all the Django stuff set up, we're going to take a little break so we can get coffee, hit the bathroom, get a snack or something, come back, and then we're going to start using Django REST framework. That'll include installing it, setting up some serializers, making an actual API. And the first thing we're going to do is make, like we can view things. Then we're going to make it so we can actually add things and do different functions to the things, to all the items in our database. We can add items, we can get items out, we can delete things, and then we'll be doing authentication. And we'll also be going over how exactly you access the API if you want to check like on a command line, what the browsable API looks like, that kind of stuff. So with that, let's go over what we're going to do today. Why use Django REST framework and why actually create an API? I have a lot of people that ask me this, why bother? You already have a Django site and you can just create views and make the website and boom, you're done. My job requires me, the back end is written in Django and Django REST framework, and the front end is hosted completely separately and is an Angular site. And one of the reasons that I actually fell in love with this separation, and the reason I originally did it was because Django Angular, we needed to use Angular, but Django Angular was just really messy. I didn't, not really messy, but there are things where you had to keep like setting things up, and there are things you couldn't use, and there was a lagging behind the supports. I was like, nope, let's just separate it and make an API. And this turned out to be an awesome way to set things up. I can see why people do this now. One of the things that I discovered is that I'm not spending my entire day writing views and tweaking views. And my designer, his setup is much more simple because all he does, I have a development server that's hosted on Heroku, and all he does is he hits it. So when he's making his front end changes, all he does is hits it. I don't have to, tell him, okay, you need to, do another pull from the back end, from our Django app, and you need to run, sync it, and you need to, add this data, and you do this. It's made it so much faster. And basically what I do is I throw data at him. I'm like, here is all your data. Just do what you want with it. And he's the one who goes through and will put things in the right place. There have actually literally been pages where I'm just like, here's your JSON, and just paste it on the page so he kind of knows what he has available, and he makes it look nice. And it has really shortened the amount of time that we need to that I spend at his computer trying to get everything working again on his local, which is important because I am the one developer at my company. So that's why I really like doing it. Also, another thing we stumbled upon is that by creating an API and separating the front end, we discovered as we talked to other investors, they're like, oh, well, we really like the data in the back end. Could we use it this way? And we're like, it's an API, surely. Here's your keys. Have fun. So that's made it a lot easier for us to, create more business interest and just reuse the stuff over and over again. So let's get started. The first thing we need to do is create a new workspace. So if you're in your dashboard for Cloud9, you click Create New Workspace, and you don't need to clone from a URL. We're just going to create one. You get all these options. You can make all these things. Go with the Django one, and we're going to you need to name the workspace. And I am calling it Gooder Reads, because we are totally going to create a Goodreads clone. Well, not really. It's not going to be a great clone, but it'll work for our purposes. So right now it's processing. Can't open it yet. Just have to give it a sec. And I'm going to check over here, make sure. Okay, everybody's still fine. Once it's actually generated, go ahead and click Start Editing, and it'll load up. Gives a second. And as you can see, we have a very basic Django app. It literally does nothing. To run it, you click Run Project up here. And unlike if you're used to working, I forgot it actually. Oh, sorry. Let me move my head there. When you run it for the first time, it'll actually have you do some stuff. So don't have any super users defined. Yeah, I'm going to go ahead and create one, and I'm going to give it my name and give it a fake email address and give it a password. And you will totally see this password again later. So the code is running here. And if you just click this, it'll bring up like a little browser window up here. So it works. We have it working. I'm going to stop it. So we have our Django site that's, working. It's doing the It's Work page. The first thing we need to do is create an app. So down here, and let me real quick go over the Cloud9. We've used it a bunch of times, but I see a new name or two. Oop. 401 unauthorized. Sorry, just trying to help somebody out. So for Cloud9, this over here, these are all your files. This is your terminal window, and you can pull this up or down. And you'll get a whole bunch of tabs here eventually as you run things. Here is where you'll actually do code. Oh, okay, we're good. This is where you'll actually write your code. And whenever you want to run something, you do run project. You don't do like Python manage.py run server, because yeah, it'll run, but it won't really do what you expect it to. You have to click run. I recommend clicking run project. There's a way to do it without clicking that, but just click the run project button. It's easier. So let's go ahead and create an app. So the first thing we need to do is you do an ls, you can see, okay, we've got our manage.py and everything here. Python manage.py, start app, and we're going to call the app books. And now we have a folder called books. It has migrations, admin, models, test views, blah, blah, blah. So I'm going to pull my face down here again. There. So let's create some models. And these are going to be some very basic models. So I'm going to create an author class. And I will warn you right now, you are going to see me typo stuff and have to look up things because I tend to get brain freeze when for some reason when I'm doing these classes. So we're creating an author, and we want the author should have a first name equals models dot char field, and we want it max length. Oh my goodness, I can't type. Max length, we'll just give it 100 just in case somebody has a really long first name. Last name, the same, models.char field, max length equals 100. I also like to give them a display name because some cultures, the first name and the last name are reversed. Some people want to have throw in a middle initial or have it formatted a specific way. So the display name, models.char field, max length equals 100. And for this one, I'm going to have blank equals true. Because, maybe they're just okay with first name, last name. So we have an author, they have a first name, a last name, and a display name. Let's go ahead and define the Unicode. Unicode is what is displayed when you're what is this thing? It gives you, what it is. Otherwise, it'll just say author object, which I'm very proud of myself right now because I almost always forget this. So we have a Unicode. We're going to just return a last first, return last first, and we need to format this where L equals self dot last name, F equals self dot first name. Now, if you want to follow along, I'm going to paste a link. Copy. Okay. And we have somebody who's having issues with manage.py. So you shouldn't edit manage.py. It's just does its own magic thing. Okay. So we've got an author. It's a very basic author. I'm just making sure. Yeah, I got. Okay. Class book models.model. And book should have a title, and that can just be another char field. Okay, good. So the book is, we're going to give it a title. Let's give it a quick description. And this one will be a text field. And we're going to allow this to be blank. Now we're also going to add an author. Authors equals many to many field, because you can have more than one author for a book. Don't make it a foreign key. Always ask yourself, can this possibly be more than one thing? Many to many field, author, and real quick, I'm just going to make sure I hit up everything. Just making sure that yep, okay. Author. I'm going to allow this to be blank because sometimes there's no author, or we don't know the author yet, and I don't like to have to stop users sometimes. I run into this a lot, that we'll make something required and then we'll discover that sometimes you just don't know yet. So we're not going to force them to add an author. And let's see, was there any other data? And yeah, I have a whole these notes over here of everything that needs to be in there. That looks pretty good. We can always add something later. And diff. And I'm going to just return I'm just going to return the title. Yeah, it could be formatted more nicely, but let's see what this undefined variable. Oh, there, models many to many. So we have this, we have authors, and we have books, and we're going to add shelves. So the shelf models.model. Just give it a title. books equals models dot many to many field book. And it can be, I think you can do this. I think you can do blank, but we'll see. We'll see when we run it. If we get an error, then we get an error. So the first thing I want to do is just go ahead and do a syncdb to make sure everything's working. So Python, down to the terminal, Python, oh, we're forgetting something. Very important, and I do this so often. We need to actually add this to our installed apps. So if you go to Go to Reads and you go to settings.py, scroll down to installed apps, should be around line 33, but you can also search for it. And we need to add books. So we need to make sure that we have it installed so we actually, know to use it. So Python manage.py. syncdb will go ahead and add all of the things that we need to for all the columns and tables and all of that we need to, that we've added with our new app. Oh, sorry, not syncdb. So you can tell I'm an old school Django developer. We need to make migrations. So Python manage.py, make migrations. And as you can see, made the migrations for books. It created the model, author, book, and shelf. So we now have all of these in our database and we can start creating things. After we run the migration. So first you make the migration and then you actually run them. You don't want Python to do both at the same time, which is actually a good thing because every once in a while you'll look at this and go, oh no, that's not what I want to do. So you can delete it and do something else. So Python manage.py, migrate, because that's fine. This all looks great. So it went ahead, we have all of those migrations are now in the database. We can start adding things. So in order to add things, you can either do it through the shell, which they do in the Django tutorial, which I don't understand because like nobody does that. Oh, we have questions. It says access denied. Okay, let me try. Let me pull my face down. Your face. Okay, share. We'll just make everything. It should be. Let me try opening it in incognito. If we can't get the sharing to work, oh, okay, good, I see. People can now see it. Okay, so at this point we have all the databases working and all of that. Now let's go ahead and create the admin, because you need to have the admin like working. You need to actually add everything to the admin, because there are some times where you'll create a Django like class you don't want in the admin. So it will not automatically add everything. One of the examples of this, if you do a through relationship, sometimes you have many-to-many relationships, which are they just go like that, or foreign keys that you just connect. Sometimes you have to go through a third thing. So you have to go through a through relationship. So those you don't want in your admin, because those are not things you add. Like you add programmatically, you don't actually physically add them. So let's go ahead and create some Django admins. And I have to like pull up the Django admin. Okay. So for each one, first we're going to import all our models. So from books.models import star, whatever. You shouldn't import star, but it's fine for this case. Normally you'd have like each model that you want to import. but this isn't going to production, so we're fine. So class, the first thing we have is the author, and we're going to call it author admin, models.model admin. Oh, no, sorry, admin, sorry. Don't do as I do. And we're just going to pass because we're just saying, you know, whatever you have there, just have it up there. That's fine. Class, book admin, admin, model admin, pass, class. When was the last one we had? We have authors, we have bookshelves. Shelf admin, admin.model admin, pass. Now we need to actually register them. The reason we need to register them is because sometimes you create an admin that you don't want to actually show up in the admin. So it might be like a line in another admin. So you have to register all of them. When you're making very simple apps, this can feel like, why am I doing all of this? But it's really because there's more complex use cases that Django is built for. So just admin.site.register. Author admin. Now there is a case that they sometimes make that you don't need a model admin at all, that you can just register. I prefer to do it this way because I get really picky after a while that I want special fields and things like that. So I always just do this, site.register book, book admin. Last one was shelf. Shelf admin. Stop putting in parentheses. Okay, so we've got all of our stuff. Let's go ahead and run the project. And I am going to, wish there was a way to like just copy that without it being a link, but there. If we go to this, we can log in. And as you can see, we can now start adding authors, books, and shelves. So yay, we did it. We've created a basic app. I'm also going to create a user, and because we have an app for books, I'm just going to create a new app. I'm going to stop running. I don't need you anymore. All right, so Python, manage.py, start app, and we're going to call this GR users. Now, the reason I'm doing this, I like to separate out like the user stuff because we're going to actually have users going in and adding books and seeing what books they have and seeing what other books other people have and that kind of stuff. They're going to have a lot of, they could potentially have a lot of data on them, although we're going to start off super simple. So because all we're going to start off with at the beginning is we're going to from django.contrib.auth.models import user, because we're going to use Django users just to start off with. I'm going to create a class gr user models.model. They're going to have a first name, a very long first name, a last name, and they are going to have a user, which will be a Django user. So models.foreign. Okay. Oh, that looks wrong. I type foreign key like 100 times a day, and it always looks wrong. Yep. Darn you, English teachers, for ingraining the I before E and me. Bottles.foreign key, and it's going to be a foreign key to a user object. So, and I'm just making sure that I did this right. Okay, so this is good. We are going to once again we're going to make some migrations. Oh wait, so I almost forgot it again. I tell you, I forget this almost every time to actually add it to the stupid installed apps. I've almost like created a hook just to automatically add it. So our thing is gr users, save that, close settings. Let's go ahead and make some migrations. Okay, and we want to apply the migrations. All right, we got it. Let's just make sure. Oh, we need to add it to the admin. Gr user admin dot, what was it again? Model admin. We need to import from gr users import dot models, import everything. Gr user admin. All right, this is all working. Let's go ahead and run just to make sure. Oh, aha. I knew I was screwing it up somehow. Capital M. Go ahead and run. No, I fixed it. Run. There. All right, we can click this, go to the admin again, and yay, we have GR users. So at this point, everything's set up. I'm going to turn off my camera for a little bit and get some coffee, and we can get everyone, and then I'll make sure everybody's up and running before we move on to the next part. let's get back to it. I don't see any problems. Seems like everybody's able to get this up and running. And I'm going to check my dashboard real fast to make sure that nobody shared anything with me. Okay, cool. Nobody shared anything with me, so that means there shouldn't be any problems. So let's move on to getting the REST framework up and running. So at this point, we have a Django website. It's working. And we want to actually create an API. So the first thing I normally do, actually, let me bring that back up. My normal order for things is to first create something to look at. So I'm actually just not going to use their little in-browser. I'm going to go to a new window. So the first thing I normally do is I just create a couple of objects in our Django database. And if we've done everything correctly, we shouldn't have any problems. So let's go ahead and we're going to add an author, and we're going to give her the name of Polly Watson. Save. I'm going to create a book, and the book is Tea Time Recipes. Really quick description. Lovely things to serve with tea, and you don't need to actually copy any of this down. Move head there. Save it. Save it. There we go. And let's create a shelf. Shelf recipe books. Save that. There's actually a few things I forgot that I totally blanked out on. Whoa, that's huge. I didn't want that kind of thing. I do this all the time. I screw up text in char fields. That's okay, whatever. We're going to give Dottie Doolittle is my favorite user, and we're going to create a Django user for her. Doolittle, and give her a password and save the password. So we've created some objects, and there's a little bit of cleanup I have to do. Oh, sorry. A little bit of cleanup I have to do. So let me go over here, because one of the things I forgot in my GR user thing is to make it Unicode. So def Unicode self return Unicode or last first. We're going to format it. L equals self dot last name. F equals self dot first name. So it actually looks nice, because that would totally bug me forever. And let's make sure. Yeah, okay, it worked. Cool. And one thing I forgot to add is we need to add a field to GR user, because there's a few things. They need to be able to own shelves, and they need to be able to own books. So shelves equals models.many to many. And we are going to have them shelf. We need to actually import it. So from books.models, import everything. They need to have shelves, and they need to have books that they can own. So we're going to need to migrate this. So go ahead and stop. Python manage.py make migrations. and Python manage.py migrate. So it all migrated. We'll go ahead and run it again just to make sure that everything is doing what it should. So here's Dottie. Let's give Dottie up. Shelf objects also need a Unicode. And she owns tea time recipes. And I'm just going to go back over to the models here and add in the Unicode. None of this is like earth-shattering stuff. It's just stuff I often forget as I'm writing things. Turn self.title. Oh, right. And normally when you change your models or admin or anything, you should see Django reload here. That it did it, so you can see it was serving stuff and then it reloaded. It should do that. If you ever have a problem where it's like it's just not working, stop the Django server, restart it manually, because every once in a while that's just something you gotta do. I don't know why. So let's go and actually get ready to use the Django REST framework. So I'm going to move my head, move head. There we go. So I'm going to stop Django for the moment. I don't have to, but I prefer to do that when I'm going to start doing some major stuff. So the first thing we need to do is actually install it. Now, if you are working on your local environment and a virtual environment, some of these steps might be a little different. Basically, I'm going to be using sudo because that's what you do in Cloud9, because Cloud9 just gives you a little instance and says, here, this is your little computer, your little server, do whatever you want with it. So you use sudo. If you're working on your local, you don't want to use sudo. So the first thing I need to do is sudo pip install, and I'm going to pull up, because they have it, I think it's all together. Yep, Django REST framework. And it's all together, Django REST framework. Hit enter and it should go out and grab it. It successfully installed it. And let's see. The other thing we're going to install, so we're going to install two things. The other thing we're going to install is called HTTPie. I forget how they actually have you pronounce it. And I'm going to look that up. Because normally I'm just using it on my own, so I don't have to like, it's like HatePie. Oh, HTTPie. Okay, HTTPie is what it's called. And we're going to go ahead and install that because that, it's kind of like curl, if you ever use that or wget, but it's much easier to use. It uses Python requests. It has pigment highlighting. I love it. I was doubtful. I actually only installed it because the tutorial through the Django REST framework had me install it, and now I love it. Now I adore it. So to do that, we do sudo pip install HTTPie. It gets a whole bunch of stuff. There we go. All right, so everything is ready. We have it installed. So the first thing we need to do is go to go-to-read/settings because we actually need to install it, like add it to our settings. So under installed apps, after all like the Django contrib stuff, we need to add REST underscore framework, comma. I usually put this before all my apps, and there's reasons why, you know, because it needs to be imported first usually. So just go ahead and add it before books and GR users. Oh, and make sure that you don't have any errors. Okay. So we're adding it to our installed apps, and we're going to need to update our URL patterns. So right now all we have is admin, like what the admin is. So we need to add this. Oh, no, we don't. Don't listen to me. This is their special way of doing it because they actually have, if you go to their tutorial, they're creating code snippets, and I like books better. So we're making books. And I wanted to show some more complicated stuff. So right now we should be good. And let's see if we actually need to make any migrations. It doesn't hurt to just make migration to see if you do need to do anything. Manage.py, make migrations. Because they're actually, when we're talking about the Django REST framework, it doesn't usually have any models of its own. It just pushes out data. That's it. It uses your data and just pushes that out in a special way. So I'm going to move my head down here, maybe make my head smaller. There, tiny head. Much easier to deal with. So the first thing we do, now it's all set up, and we should be able just to go ahead and run it and make sure that nothing is like broken or weird. Nope, nothing's broken or weird. It's still working. We go down to the base of the website. It's still working. Okay, so we're good. We're good. The next thing we need to do, and I'm pulling up, is we actually need to create a serializer. A serializer is an object that knows how to actually like put your data all together. Now, if you go to the tutorial, they do everything at once. And the first thing I want to focus on, because I think doing everything at once is way overwhelming, is that you just want to create a, first you just want to create something just to view. So the first thing we need to do is create a new file under books. So let's see, new file. We're going to call it serializers, serializers.py. And we're going to open it. Serializers.py is where we're going to put all of our serializers for this model, or for this group of models, for this app. So first we want to import the models we're actually going to serialize. So from books.models, import everything. And I'm going to very quickly make just a basic serializer. So give me a second. Don't copy what I'm doing till I say, because I'm literally copying and pasting some stuff. So almost done. From REST framework, import serializers. Okay, so let me talk a little bit about what this code is doing. So from REST framework, we're importing serializers. So there's many different kinds of serializers. I generally just use model serializers, but there's many you can choose from, like custom ones, depends on how customized you want your data. I just tend to be like, take everything that's in the model and throw it in there. We need to import all of our things from books.models. And I created something called book serializer. And it really only has like a couple of lines in it. Class meta that says what model we're using, and we're using book, and we can actually declare what fields we want to use. So I'm going to create a few more serializers just by copying and pasting this and being a lazy developer. So I'm going to create the author serializer off of author. And that one has a first name, a last name, and a display name. And a book, we need a shelf serializer. Model will be a shelf. It has a PK, it has a title, and it has books. Does it have a description? Let's check. Has title, has books. No, come back here, serial. There you are. Okay. Does not have a description. So we have a shelf serializer, a book serializer, and an author serializer. Now, if you go to the tutorial, they go into all of this, showing, what you can do with this in the shell. I don't generally do that because most of the time you're not doing much with like actual serializers. You're actually using these with views. So at least that's how I do it, especially if you're using a model serializer. So let's create a view. And we're going to create the view under books. Right now there's no views, like none, literally. Let's see. And I'm going to be adding in some stuff. I'm doing a lazy copy and paste over here. So just give me a sec. Because you're not here to watch me like type. From books.serializers, import everything, just import it all, because we're going to use everything. And there's one more thing that for some reason they don't use it, and I'm going to, this is my work, you can see all the horrible like code I have here, because I'm going to pull up my serializer that I use for work so I can just cheat and grab the thing that they for some reason wait until the end of the tutorial to tell you about that could really make your life a lot easier. There we are. Okay. And you might see me flip over to my work stuff every once in a while because I have a lot more shortcuts. And for some reason, the tutorial takes this backwards, the usual Django backwards route that always does. It's like, oh, here's the things I'm never going to use. So add this. Okay. And let's just make a quick, let's see, I think we can do this. Serif exempt. We're going to create, just give me a list of books. All books. And we're going to get a request from it. And I always add kworks here. Don't always need it, but it's nice to have. So the first thing we're just going to basically do is we're going to get all the books. So books equals book.objects all. We're just going to get them all. Our serializer, and I'll explain like all the code. Part of this is just me talking to myself. Our serializer is going to be book serializer books many equals true. Return response serializers.data. So what's going on in our views file? Well, first we have our usual like Django shortcuts that they always have here. And we have, just in case I need it, the CSRF exempt. Yeah, I have it here. Because now they have in Django where the cross-scripting security error, this is how they filled that up. So you often need to say, just don't worry about that for this view. So from REST framework renderers, we've imported a JSON renderer and we've imported a response. I don't actually use the JSON renderer, so I'm going to delete it for now. And we imported all of our serializers. And here's our view. This is a view to get all of the books. So we get all the books, we create a serializer using the book serializer, And we say many equals true. If you have more than one object that you're going to be putting into a serializer, you need to tell the serializer to expect more than one thing. Otherwise, it kind of freaks out and it doesn't know what to do. So you need to tell it you're going to be processing more than one thing. And we're going to return a response using the data in the serializer. So the serializer creates the JSON and the response serves the JSON. Last step, because whenever you create one of these, there's usually 3 steps to it. You create the serializer, you create the view, and then you add it to urls.py. So let's go ahead and do that. URL, oh, the usual stuff that I always forget how to do. Okay, so it's going to go from books, book/all is going to return, and we're going to use, first we have to import it. So from books.views import, let's import everything. And we're going to use, what do we call it? Books, all books, all books. So we created a URL. We basically said, you know, books.all. Go ahead and use the all books view. And let's see if this actually works. At this point, I usually like to test because it's easy to forget like one or, you know, a thing or two. So let's see, /books/all. Accepted render is not set on response. Blar. Well, let's see what this is. This is actually a new error for me. And I'm going to pull up my work to see how I set these. And actually, you know what? I'm going to just go ahead and use the API view. I am deviating from the tutorial. But the tutorial does do things a little bit backwards. So we're going to go back to views, and I will tell you when you can go just copy everything and get caught up. Decorators, I'm just going to add an API view. Now API view will basically say what kind of calls are allowed. So in general, you're working with 3 kinds of things you can do. You can get, you can post, or you can do the other one that I always forget about. Now here we only want to get. We only want to get the information. We're not trying to actually push any information. So let's see if this works now. It might. Look, it works. Okay, so here we have the Django REST framework is actually saying, you know, if somebody went to this, they could actually see, and I'm going to make this big. Here's all our books. We only have one, but there it is. So it returned a few things. So it returned the like ID, the PK of the object. It returned the title. Authors, it returned a list with a number in it. And we'll go into why that is in a minute and how we can make that better if you want. And it returned a description. So at this point, you could take this JSON and get it from anywhere. Now, this is nice to see it this way, but I find a lot of people think this is like the end. Let's actually test it through HTTPie, and play around with it. So, no, this is the one. This is the one I want. I'm going to clear this. No, really clear it all. Okay. So the way HTTPie works is at this point we should have where we can do okay, cool. So you can see we can just type in HTTP and it'll actually do something. So if I do an HTTP get on Google, we're going to get a whole mess of stuff. So it's basically a way to get web pages, but it looks much nicer. So let's do HTTP get. I'm going to go here and I'm going to get this. And look, it has our header, all kinds of information, and it has our authors and everything. So at this point, I'm going to take a little bit of pause because we have it at least up and running, which is the hardest part. And I'm going to make sure that everybody gets a chance to get caught up and ask any questions. Feel free to just go in at this point and copy everything I have here because it's all working. Okay, it looks like everybody is good. I don't see anybody complaining about any errors, so let's go ahead and move on to the next thing, which is we're going to go back to serializers. And one of the things you would probably notice is when you bring up this, you get a list of like just number. You just get a number and a list. And that's because you didn't tell the Django REST framework to return more objects because you can actually go and return like a bunch of objects, but you actually have to tell it. Now, sometimes you really only want the PK. Let me show you some of the crazy, like, let's see. Next seems dead, wordless, JSON. This, after it boots up, you can have it return every little bit of data, but sometimes you don't want to do that. Sometimes you actually want to just return like the ID because you may have more like here, like it has pretty much like all kinds of stuff attached to it. It just depends. I prefer to return as much as I can with one call because I'd rather them just make one call. So how do we actually make it so that the book serializer does not just return the ID, but returns all the information about the author? Well, that's actually pretty easy. Under the class, we're going to have create authors, and I'm going to double check myself really fast. Oh, why are you all the way over here? Get back over here. There. And I'm going to look at my serializer just to make sure. Ah, okay, cool. Author, serializer, many equals. So what we're doing here is we're saying, hey, you're going to expect a field called authors. Use the author serializer. And yes, you're going to get more than one because that's just how it is. It's not a foreign key field, it's a many-to-many field. So expect more than one of them and deal with it. So let's see what happens. Django is running. It seems to be okay. Now if we hit reload, now authors is actually a list of objects. Dictionaries we call them, but it's actually a JSON object. So we have, the ID for them, her first name, her last name, and that she has no display name. So easy peasy. Now let's see, let's create for GR users, it's going to need a serializer. We're definitely going to need a serializer for them because we're eventually going to get into authentication. So new file under GR users, we're going to call it serializers.py. We're going to open it. So first thing I'm going to do is just come here and you will see that, I do a lot of copy and pasting when it comes. No, I didn't want that. Copy this stuff. Copy this. There. All right. So we want all the stuff from books.models because we might actually need to, well, no, I guess we'll see if we'll need them. So from gr users.models import all. And we're going to create a class gr user serializer. And that's going to be a serializers.model serializer class meta. And the class meta, we need to set the model. The model is gr user. Stop putting parentheses in there. No. GR user. Sometimes autocomplete is a total pain. And we need to set the fields. Fields equals. We want to get the PK. We want to get the user. We want to get the first name. We want to get the last name. What else is on our user? I'm actually going to start closing some of these because it gets really confusing. Models. GR user has a first name, a last name, a user, shelves, and books. Shelves, books. Okay, so now we have a GR user serializer. Now the next step, we've created the serializer. Now we need to create the view. My printer went off. Now we need to create the view. So let's go into the view under GR users. And as usual, I'm going to go back over to views here and just, copy some stuff. No. And we're going to use the API view because that gives us the really nice view, the pretty page that we get. And it honestly just, simplifies our life quite a bit. Why are you complaining? And we're going to say, this one is going to be get user, because at this point, we're not going to get all users. We're actually going to ask for a specific user. So, and we're going to start really using HTTPie at this point, because I like using the actual interface for just things where I just want to get information or see all things. But for the most part, you're asking for one or two things, and sometimes you don't want to actually put that in the URL. You want to post it as data. So this is the next step we're going to be taking. So get user, and we're going to get a request. And we'll just put some keywords in there just in case. So 2 stars. There we go. So we're going to get the user. We're going to say that the PK that we're going to be using is from request.data PK. Because whenever we get data, we can actually attach data, whenever we get a request, we can attach data to that request. And this is one of those cases where you can kind of hide it. Don't put it in the URL, just put it in the request. This is really nice if you're doing something where you don't want to reveal what user you're talking about, or you don't want somebody to just start going through 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. If you want to protect certain things, it's just a good habit to get into. So we have, we're going to get the PK from the request. Our user is going to be, oh, we need to actually import our user from gr users.models import all. It's going to be gr user objects get pk equals pk, because this should only return 1 because that's a unique ID. So we should only get 1 from this. Now we also need to import serializers. So from gr users.serializers import everything. Our serializer, and you'll see this pattern a lot, get the stuff, turn it into a serializer, return the data from the serializer. So our serializer is going to equal gr user serializer. We're going to send it user. We're only going to send 1. And we are going to return response. We only want 1, not serializers. Serializer. Data. So we've created the serializer. We've created the view. The last step is to add it to urls.py. URL r, and we're just going to have it be user user is a thing, and we need to make sure that we import it. So from gr users.views import all. And this should work. Now if we go here, we're probably going to get an error because we didn't send a PK, and there really isn't a good way to send it through the interface. Now we're getting an error here, but that does not mean that this doesn't work. We just didn't send the right data. So what we're going to do is down here. I'm going to pull this up, clear this out, and we're going to use HTTPie to actually talk to our API. So the first thing is my printer keeps making noises, which is why I keep frowning at it. We are going to first get. That's what we're going to be doing. Let's see. Where do we get the source code again? Hold on 1 second. Okay, so we're going to get, we have to give it a URL. So HTTP. I'll just copy and paste. There we go. So we're getting it, this is the URL. Now everything after this is the data that we're going to send. So PK equals 1 is what we're going to send. You can put in all kinds of stuff after this. You can have like multiple, the title, books, all kinds of stuff after this. We only have to send 1 piece of data though. So let's see if this works. It did. So this is one of the reasons why I like using both the front end but also having something to check the back end. So we can see that Dottie has, a list of books. She has a first name, she has a last name. This is her ID. She has a shelf, and that is her user ID. Now, we actually might, we want to have some of this stuff actually displayed. So you can actually create serializers for anything. You can create them for Django users, which is what we're using right now for authentication. One of the reasons why I use a Django user and then create another like user type and inherit from that instead of taking the Django user and subclassing it, is it's not uncommon to have, you know, a customer come in 2 years later and say, oh yeah, that Django user, yeah, we need to replace that with our personal authentication network, you know, or stuff. So it's really easy just to take out, you know, a Django user and plug in a new user if you have your own, you know, user class. If you've subclassed and done all kinds of weird stuff, much harder to tear that out. So that's one of the reasons why I just like to use that, because most people will move over to OpenAuth eventually, and this just makes your life easier. Let's see. So we have Dottie Doolittle, and what we want to do now is first I want to get this error off here. Let's go back to this. Okay. Under our serializers for GR users, let's create class user serializer, serializers model serializer. Class meta, because we always have a meta class, and our model is going to be user. So this will be for our Django user, and the fields will be PK, user name. So we have, you know, this is what we're going to return, and we can here actually add this. So let's do user equals user serializer. And we don't have to do the many equals true because there's only one user that we're worried about right now. So let's go ahead and try this again. Let's see if it works. And as you can see here, I just did the HTTP call again. And now we actually have a user, and we can see here's their PK, here's their username. We can even add in the email if we wanted to, but just so we get some more information. Now, we don't have to create more serializers for the other stuff that Dottie happens to have. What we can do is import it from serializers over here. So book serializers, we have an author, shelf. Okay, we already have all the serializers all set up, so don't have to worry about that. So books.serializers, import, just import all the things. And let's go ahead and shelves equals shelf seri. Many equals true, because she can have more than one. Shelves books equals book serializer, many equals true. And I'm going to look to see why that didn't auto, not models, not views, not views, this serializer. Copying this just to make sure, because it wouldn't be the last time. Yeah, I guess that works. Okay. Books equals books with serializer, we're going to have more than one book. And if we do this call one last time, we should get a lot of data back. Look at this. Now we have all the data. So now you can see we have books, authors, descriptions, with like this more complex, you know, JSON, which is really nice if I was making something like a, you know, dashboard for them, that I could make one call and I could get all their stuff. I recommend doing this over just saying, oh, here are all the IDs, and just make calls for all the IDs, because the fewer calls you make, the better. That's primarily what slows down web pages. Most of the time it's how many requests you're making, so you want to limit it. So if you can make just one call and get a ton of data, it's much better for you. So Let's see, no problems being reported. So good. All right. I'm going to take a quick break since now we've covered, how to get it installed and how to, get the serializers up and working and how to get all the serializers talking to each other. I'm going to take a quick break so I can drink some water and brush up on the next part. So see you in a few minutes. Okay. Okay. All right, cool. Okay. The next thing I want to cover is how to, now we can actually see stuff that's in the database. Now we want to be able to actually add stuff to the database. And for this, you will definitely need to use HTTP, the Pi thing, the HTTPie, because that's how we're going to be actually using it to put information in our database. So the first thing we need to do, we actually don't need to do anything to the serializers. The serializers are just there to deal with data. What we need to do is I'm going to close, I'm going to close, I'm going to close, and go to views. And we're going to create a new view. So new view, and it's going to use post. So the first thing we're going to do is we're actually going to make a request, and we have to think about what we need to actually create a book. So the book is going to need, and I'm making a little list for myself because I will often just forget one of the things. It's going to need a title. It's going to need an author PK. So we're going to assume that we're adding one to an author that we already have. So it needs a title, needs an author, needs a description. And what else do we have? on our book. Title, description, authors. Okay. So this is just going to create a new book. We're going to assume that this book doesn't already exist. So I'm going to cheat for a sec and look over at my views here since, and yes, you get to see all my proprietary code here. Enjoy. All right, so first we need to actually create the item. You can just go ahead and use all the data in the request. That's fine. But for simplicity's sake, we're just going to go ahead and say, okay, the title is equal to the request.data title. If description, because description is optional, in request.data, then our description equal to request data description else equals just empty. So we need a title. And the last thing we need to get is a list. I'm actually going to leave that off for now, that we won't add an author at the moment. So we need to create our book. No, book equals book.objects.create. And the title is equal to title description equal to the description. Now, one thing you don't have to do, but I like to do, is to actually return the object we just created. It's very useful to be able to get that ID, and I use that all the time where I get the new thing and I'm like, okay, cool, it's done. You could just send a code that says, everything's fine, we did it, and not send the data back. I just like to send the data back because often when I create something, I need to use it immediately. So we're going to create a serializer equals a book serializer using book turn response serializer.data. Now we need to add it to our URLs. So URL to books add, and we called it add book. All right, so this is running. We're just going to make sure everything's still running fine, that we don't have any weird errors. Okay, so we're not going to be able to actually use this because whenever you're going through the browser, this is the thing you'll get if you try to actually use it through the browser, because browsers are almost always like what we're doing right now are all get. So detail method get not allowed. So we're just not allowed to use it. Sometimes I will add in there, like if they try to use get, that I'll allow both, but if they try to post to something that should only be using get, I'll just be like, no, sorry, that's not implemented, or just, bad query or whatever. I'll return something. For this case, don't worry about it. So what we need to do now is actually add a book. So let's go here. We're going to clear this out, and we're going to use HTTP. This time we're going to use post, not get. We need the URL we're going to use, which I'm just going to copy from here. We're going to add a book. The title equals fun lunch snacks, and the description is going to be hope you like raisins. So let's see if this works. It did. Okay, cool. So in theory, this book should exist in our database now. So let's check that. I'm going to go here, copy, and go to the admin because I want to see if it actually was added. And look, it was. Fun lunch snacks. Hope you like raisins. Doesn't have any authors. So that's usually the second thing I do when I'm creating an API. You know, the first thing I do is I make it so I can view objects. Then I make it so I can actually add objects. So we can actually add objects now. Now, as for adding a list of things, I remember that being a little bit weird and complicated. Or not weird, but let's see. I'm going to look through because I could have sworn I did it at some point. But basically, if you want to do a list of things, you do have to you can make it a little complicated for yourself because you actually have to send a list back to yourself, which can get kind of weird. So what I prefer to do is just add a function to add each of the things one at a time, so that the calls don't get super weird. So with that, let's actually make it so we can add an author. Add author. Request. Keywords just in case. Our author is going to be equal to an author objects get, where the PK is equal to request.data. PK, I'm going to assume that we're going to get the right there, that they're just going to send us that. Oh, I almost completely screwed up all of our code there. Down here. So we're going to get our author. Why are you complaining? I don't know why you're complaining. Oh, I get it. Okay, we'll see. Well, it's still complaining. I'll figure it out when I run it. So we've got our author. And actually, we need to change this to author PK because the other thing we need is a book. Book equals book.objects.get PK equals request data book. Okay. And I do like to be specific when I make these calls, so I know that I'm not actually sending a book, that I'm actually sending some kind of ID. Oh my God, why are you complaining? What did I do? I probably just screwed up an indent or something. This all looks fine. I think it's just being weird. So our book, and all we're going to do is that if author not in book.authors.all author book.authors.add, just go ahead and add the author. I do like to do a check just to make sure the author isn't already in there. And then serializer equal to, I'm just going to return the book serializer of our book. Oh, one thing I almost forgot, book.save. That's another thing I often forget, is to actually save the stupid object. Serializer, return, response, serializer.data. So let's see It just says invalid syntax. That doesn't make any sense. It's fine. Oh, I see where it is. Dirt there. Come on. And there. There. Oh, and there it's happy. It's happy now. Okay. So let's make sure Django is still running. It is. Good. Let's make sure we don't get any really crazy like errors when we do it through here. We're going to get, oh, we forgot one thing. And I always forget, and I have to remind myself that it's a 3-step process, serializer view urls.py, because it can be very easy to just forget /author/add. Now you can make the case for APIs being able to do multiple things with just one call. Personally, I like to have APIs do one thing for a call. So if you're going to add, like you need to add 20 things, it can be simpler just to go ahead and say, make the call 20 times. There's cases to maybe to not doing that, but it can be a lot easier if you're working with, like, say, another group of people with whom you cannot communicate directly all the time, or they work weird hours. Making the calls as simple as possible is a very, very good thing, which is why I tend to veer away from having all of this like really complex calls. So let's see, author, add. Actually, you know what? I'm going to rename this, add author to book. I'm going to go over to views. Now the reason why is that eventually we're going to want to add an author. So add author to book. Okay. Let's go ahead and just make sure book/author/add. No. Okay, good. Didn't give us any crazy errors, so you can see it's working pretty good. So let's go ahead and make that HTTP call. Clear. So let me get the link, HTTP. I'm going to post here, and our book PK is going to be, and I'm just going to go over here real fast to make sure that I have the right one. I think it's 2. So yeah, 2. Our book is 2, and author PK is 1. So we only have one author, so it should be 1. And in theory, it should work. So let's check our book. And yes, Polly Watson is now the author of this book. So good. All right, so now we're actually creating data when we push, which is a good thing. This is kind of like where we want to be. Now we can add things and we can update. So you can see, after you get into the rhythm, it can seem a little complex at first, but once you get in the rhythm of all it is, like most of what you're doing, is dealing with views. That's it. You create your serializers, and I create the serializers just to give me all the data so that I can turn around and spit data back. But most of what you're doing is you're creating a view that it's like, okay, if I'm just pushing out data, what data do I want to include? Here you go. If you want to just have, if you want to update something, you have to get the thing, update it, save it, return the thing. If you want to actually create a new thing, you have to get the data, create the thing, save the thing if you have to. You shouldn't have to after create, but if you change anything, you do. And then return the thing. So just get into that rhythm of doing it. Most of the issue is actually getting like the serializers and getting everything like perfectly set up. But once you have it set up, you can see it's really easy to add new things to your API. Oh, and don't forget to add it to urls.py like me, that I keep doing. So let's see, we're at 11:22. The next thing I do want to show, because one problem we have here is that there is no authentication, like None. Anybody can create books in their little database that has access to the URL and can figure out like how to use curl. So anybody can post to this, and that's not something we want to do. We want people to authenticate. So I'm going to read up on that real fast to remind myself like all the different steps, and then I'll be right back. And I was just muted. I'm really sorry. Let me go over. And actually, it's a good thing because I was mostly struggling for the past few minutes because the tutorial is kind of unclear on the website because they, follow the Django ideal. So starting off, at the bottom of settings.py under Gooder Reads, I've added the following lines of code. So REST framework, we are setting the default permission classes, and we're saying that basically anybody who accesses our API needs to be authenticated. There are other options you could do, is authenticated or anonymous, everyone can see it, has to be a staff user, all kinds of stuff. Oh, can you hear me now? Let me make sure everybody's hearing me before I continue. Yeah. Google hears me. Okay, good. So basically, so you can set this to all kinds of different things. This sets this site-wide. And this is my preference. I prefer to set everything site-wide because I would much rather know that everything I have is behind authentication, and I specifically have to go to different things to say, okay, people can query you and they don't have to be authenticated. What I really don't want to have happen is that I will authenticate, like I will create a new post and allow people to create things and forget to hide it behind authentication. So trust me, you want to give permission rather than just give blanket, like open it up and then try to protect everything. So this basically, everybody has to be authenticated. So now we didn't add anything else anywhere, just those lines. You might have seen me bouncing around a few of them, but that's because the tutorial's a little unclear and was trying to get you to do a whole bunch of stuff at once, which by the way, if you write documentation, never do. So I'm going to clear and show you what this looks like. So right now, this is a call that we're going to get a user with the ID of 1. And this will not work because we're going to get this. Authentication credentials were not provided. That's a good thing. You definitely want to protect your users, even if it's just a list of all users, especially if you include something like email. And my story from NASA is that we had a huge database of just everybody's email, where you could mail them, all that kind of stuff. And it was completely unprotected because reasons. I have no idea. And it was useful, but when I realized that, holy crap, anybody can access this thing, I was like, wow, this could be a huge problem. Brought it up, everyone was like, oh, don't worry about it, it's fine, nobody knows about it. Well, it got on Reddit. And suddenly everyone could access this stupid database and could figure out like everybody's email. And so they could scrape it and get all the emails. And this was not a good time. So yeah, protect your users at the very least. And protect anything anywhere where you post. So anyway, authentication credentials were not provided. We now need to give credentials. So this is how our call is going to look now. I'm going to clear HTTP. First, we're going to give the auth credentials. So /a for auth, my username, my password, hello. Then I'm just going to go and grab the URL because I don't feel like typing it all out. There's the URL. We want to get user number 1. Oop, forgot one thing. After auth, we need to say how we are actually going to know what kind of call we're making. So we're doing a get. And there we go. Now we can get all of our details about Dottie Doolittle. So what books she has, what shelves she happens to have, that kind of stuff. So now that we have that, we are completely protected, which is a very good thing. And we are at 11:42. And let me see. So now we are able to, we installed Django REST framework. We've created some serializers. We've created some views. We can add objects. We can update objects. We can even delete, you know, at this point, it's not a far reach to figure out how to delete it because all you have to do is like anytime you get a little panic going, oh crap, I don't know what to do now. Come on, down, there we go. Just remember, it's all in the views. Most of what you're dealing with is right here. It's just dealing with views and that you're getting some data from the request. You're going to deal with it. You're going to get the objects. You're going to do the stuff you need to or create what you need to, save them, create a serializer, and return whatever you want. And there's really nothing saying you have to return like that serializer. You could just return something that says, okay, yeah, everything went fine. So I think Django REST Framework has some Django REST Framework responses. So they can even, you know, Django REST framework comes with custom like status codes. So, you know, if you go to the Django REST framework API guide, they have that. So you could just return like, yeah, okay, it was created, return to 201. You don't have to always return the data. I return the data because when you're dealing with people who are creating very interactive apps, you don't want it to save them a call where you're like, okay, it was done. And I only return errors if need be. So that's where we are. Was there anything else? I'm going to check out the syllabus that we had here. Advanced, let's see, I'm not getting into testing today. Advanced tweaking. Sorry about that. Voice is getting dry. I'm going to check the on air to see if I have any questions. Nope, no questions. Good. And let's see, one last thing that I'll go into. So let's see, adding custom data to the serializer. I'm going to test this. I think I remember how to do this. Data of extra stuff equals whatever. Oh no, wait, I'm not going to add it there because I want to add a book. I'm going to add it over here. Because this was one of those things that completely drove me nuts for a while, so I'm going to see if this works. I haven't done it in a while. Should have added extra stuff. Do I need to save the serializer? Maybe. Oh, no, I didn't like that at all. One of the things that drove me crazy was when I was trying to add in extra data to a serializer. So I'm going to see if I can remember where I did that. As you can see, I have a lot of code. So I can't remember quite where I did that because that was one of the things that drove me insane. Just trying to get a little bit of extra data. And if I can't find it in the next second, then I will just say, and meanwhile, if you have any questions, let me know. Yeah, I can't remember how I did that. It was not obvious. I had to like override a few things. And I should have made a note like exactly where it was. I made a note myself to do it and then didn't remind myself how to do it. Ah, I remember. I remember what it was. The serializer actually doesn't know. I think that's what the problem is. That's what it was, because it's a two-step thing, but it's not immediately obvious. So here we actually just add an extra field. I think this will do it. Otherwise, I'm going to start diving into things that I haven't taught yet, and you should ignore everything. Clear. Let's try this again. Nope. No, don't worry about it. If I figure out, I'll do an advanced class for this. Let me go back and take that out then. Make sure it works. There. So I don't know. It was a little complicated, but I think it's more of an advanced. I think you have to start using different kinds of serializers and do some funky stuff with that. So it's 11:49 now, so I'm willing to, we're editing about a half an hour early. I didn't take as many breaks as I'd expected. So if anybody has any questions, feel free to ask. Otherwise, I am going to stop the broadcast now and let me know. And you can always email me or just contact me through Twitter or through the meetup group if you have any questions or anything you would like me to explore further. I'd like to thank everybody for attending this early, and I hope you have a great Saturday. Bye.